I had heard you speaking about an investigation, or at least flying to the location of, right now his name, it's the long German name.
Herb Baumeister.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I studied that very deeply for a long time, and I was just amazed to hear that you actually have been there and experienced that.
You know, that place is so gorgeous, and I never felt in danger, or it was creepy the first night because it was a lot of information, and then all of a sudden it's like everybody, it was around midnight and everyone's like, okay, we're tired, and Joe left, and Rob and Vicky went to bed, and then here I am going down to the very basement, to sleep.
Ooh,
right down there where all the action was going on. Yeah, so that was a little creepy the first night. I didn't sleep well, but I don't think it was because I thought, Herb's ghost was standing over me or anything. I just think it was an information overload, and I was sitting there going, I'm at Fox Hollow Farm. This is insane. So I slept like a baby the second night, though.
I studied that as much as I could, from just long distance, if you will, and I just was so amazed and was just trying to share with Chad right as we're connecting about you having an opportunity to. That property just did look so beautiful to me.
It's incredible. You would love it there.
It's very interesting.
Of course, there was a medium there, Brian, and once you guys get signed up and can access that content, he's in the videos a lot, and he did not like being in the pool area. He was very adamant that he's like, there are some. I can see the men. I can see what happened down here, and he's, he would cuss every once in a while, and he's just like, this guy was effing sick, and he refused. A couple times I was kind of joshing him a little. I was like, hey, Brian, you want to sleep down in the basement on the couch, on the other side of the couch there with me? And he's like, hell no, I'm not sleeping down there.
Hey, no.
Nothing would work. So it was just me, but I would.
Oh, I'm telling you, we on our small scale, but living in the land of tourism like we do, people coming from all over the world to the French Quarter, we're doing our best to put you out there and have people know this, because we're so appreciative to you. And a female in this field is just really lovely to for both of us to have to visit with. So.
Thank you so much. That's nice of you to say.
You're very good at what you do, and we're just real grateful. And we just want everyone to know you exist. And before you know it, you'll have that equipment, and I can't wait to hear about you making that trip back. We of course, we can't wait to get you here.
I've never been, and I mean, how could I not go to the French Quarter and check all of that out, because it's supposed to be one of the most haunted cities on the planet. So I have to get out there and meet you guys.
Absolutely. And boy, it would be so interesting to just have an opportunity for all of us to actually go right back to that location, where as I refer to laughingly and not laughingly, the three of us went poof off of.
Yeah.
That street. Yeah, it's just because it's unbelievably different now. Just unbelievably different.
Yeah, it's really grown, that area. And I'm going to probably post some pictures of how the area's changed.
Kind of exploded.
Yeah, it's it used to, back when we were here, there were probably about maybe a half a dozen places, and most of them were local places, not a lot of tourists or anything like that. And now it's exploded, that it's all the
nightclubs.
The millennials, the musicians, the locals, and the tourists that either know about that part of town, or they hear about it. It's just.
So is that sad for you guys to see, or are you happy to see it growing?
I guess it's okay. I mean, I don't have, it doesn't sadden me. It's really
what it is. Yeah.
And for me, I just find it all amazing, interesting. I'm still interested in what's happening, because that place, the area was, as Ted's saying, very quiet, but also there was a lot of vacancy. The businesses there, glass windows that were vacant buildings. Chad just remembered that, because this happened to us in 97, Chad was just reminding me that the building that we could see that strange light coming through the glass panes was
it was AIDS awareness.
AIDS awareness.
And I took a few books right there across from there. Now is it's a famous record. It's a record store, and they mostly handle local and kind of hard to find. But anyway, I took some books over there to them, and he confirmed that back in that time that's what that was. So it kind of confirmed that my memory is in my regression is correct.
Right. No.
And what we noticed is that just from Chad's regression, and again, I believe Chad, and Chad believes it, that we are abducted in a clean white orb of light. And it's just amazing because that whole area has, in essence, sort of exploded in light with all of the attention, and they're calling it now the New Bourbon Street, which is crazy. That's crazy to hear because we're talking about a very small area, but it has changed a lot. We'll just have so much fun showing it to you.
Yeah, I would absolutely go out there in a heartbeat if I could. Now, jumping back to your initial, the night of the abduction in 1997, when you guys, it really creeped me out hearing you guys, and then rereading it in the book about you're going out for a night on the town with your friend, and there's just no one around. And even in these quote-unquote hotspots, it's just like the doorman or the one manager or something, and there's no one else there. I'm not as well versed in a lot of these abduction cases and the UFO cases. Have you guys heard of other accounts of people going through something similar before they're taken aboard a spacecraft or having the full abduction experience?
I have not.
Neither have I.
Yeah, I was wondering if you guys had, because I haven't. That part really stood out to me. The whole, it's almost like some kind of weird matrix setup for you guys. I'm like, what?
Right.
Where are the people? That is so strange. But there were still a few in there for you to interact with.
Right.
And, again, the one in particular in the very beginning of the evening, the black guy that was a friend, and Chad had worked with him prior, a year or two prior of that event happening to us, and we knew him fairly well. I mean, we were, I thought, fairly close and had no idea until that night, 2 years after meeting him, that he's a Mardi Gras Indian with regalia. Now, in an Indian world, that's just as bizarre, and I realize it's not to others so much because most don't understand about Mardi Gras Indian and what have you, but that's just very bizarre.
Yeah.
Just in itself. Everything was bizarre. It was the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and we implore any listeners checking out the show right now, or if you've heard part one, and that's why I wanted to touch on it again in part two, just to reiterate how strange it was. If you guys know of any newspaper article or something in an old UFO book where somebody experienced that, where they're set in this what looks like their real world, but it obviously is something that's very askew because there's no people around, at least not the numbers that you would have expected for a night like that.
That's right.
So
That's
let's pick up where we left off, and we left off at Chad's blue being experience, of course. The thing in the book also that is probably frustrating for you guys, and I know it was frustrating for me as a reader and trying to find out more about your story, was the fact that you said that the therapist that you used, you felt like she was moving Chad away from the subject of the being. Every time he would bring up the beings, she would move him away from that subject. So are you guys in the process of trying to find another therapist to move forward with that, or are you good with the answers as far as Chad's side of things?
Well, I'll just kind of run with that, and Chad certainly will have his thoughts on it. As far as I'm concerned, I stay constantly open for anybody out there that we feel guided to or is guided to us to move further with us, because from the very beginning, and it stays this way for me particularly, is we're our only people we have to investigate ourselves and to try to understand what's going on with us. So I personally feel there's a great deal of information still inside of Chad that if he's willing, and he's indicated to me that he has been, to go, to have this experience again, absolutely, I would love to see this happen again. And then, as far as I'm concerned, is for myself, absolutely, to have the experience of being able to, be regressed to find what it is that has been blocked for me.
Yeah, and we'll get into your encounter, of course. I've got lots of notes on that. But, Chad, as far as your side of things, are you torn at all between maybe I don't want to know everything that happened, or are you gung-ho to find another hypnotherapist?
No, I would be open to that, definitely, to see if anything else could come out.
Now, again, we're going to get into your story, Alta, and you have very, very interesting aspects of your story that it looks like, Chad, you're pretty sure that you don't have, and that is any implants on your body. Are you almost 100% sure, or you're maybe not sure until you go back under hypnosis that you don't have any foreign bodies located on you?
Yeah, as far as like anything, the only thing that I've ever noticed, and I didn't notice this, Mark, till probably maybe 10 years ago. There's a place, and it's just around my navel. And like when I get out of a hot shower, you know how your skin is red,
mm-hmm.
or when I'm out in the summertime and no shirt and I get a suntan, there's a little place right around my navel, and it kind of looks like 3 fan blades, almost like, and I think that's kind of like the radiation kind of symbol also, which is kind of weird, but
mm-hmm.
it stays really, really white. I won't hand there, and that's really the only strange mark. Now, I don't ever remember anything, bizarre happening to make this happen, but it's just really, it's always been strange to me how, my skin does not, change color there. It stays, the white pigment stays.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But as far as like any kind of foreign body, I don't think I have any.
Because you had really profound stuff going on there with the blue being and that goo and whatever he was playing with. He says you'll learn what it is in time because you were wondering, right?
Right.
It does seem like there's a lot of untold side to your story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and that's another fishing line in the water. I'll just put that out there. If these two have already said yes, we are looking for hypnotherapists. So if anyone out there, a friend of a friend, or you yourself are doing these sorts of things and have an open mind, then contact me or Chad and Alta, of course, please.
Definitely.
Well, and thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much for, offering that for us. We're just very grateful.
Oh, absolutely. I can't even imagine what that would be like. I was awake during my experience, of course, as you know, it was broad daylight and I wasn't asleep and I didn't see space outside the craft. That still is just astounding to me, Chad. With the whole chair thing, I think I said last time, I'm like, yeah, they were trying to make you feel comfortable because there's a leather chair, except for the whole space outside thing. It's totally normal.
Right.
But I just can't imagine having something just kind of eating away at you and wondering what really else happened, because there's just a little tiny snapshot, a little snippet, it seems, of that night. So anything I can do to help, I certainly will.
Wow, that's just awesome.
No problem. Yeah, the second I get anything, I'll forward it to you guys if they don't contact you directly. And we may as well just throw the email out here right now if someone is ready to go with it. What's you guys' best email for contact?
It's email unbound323@AOL.com. And you can also reach us on our Facebook page, and that's Abducted in the French Quarter.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, just in case someone's like, well, give it out right now because I'm ready to contact them. There you go.
Yeah.
So Yeah, Chad, any last thoughts on your experience before I jump in here with Alta on hers?
No, I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna post some, new shots of the corner and stuff probably this week. I'm gonna be in that area of town, so, that'll be on our Facebook page also, so.
That'll be great. And if you guys don't mind, I'll snap those up and put them in the show notes when this show airs as well.
Yeah, feel free to use any of our photos or anything on Abducted.
Yeah, and in fact, because we're going to be getting into Alta's story this time, I didn't want to throw the pictures up last time that you guys sent me, but you have very interesting photos that you sent me of the quote-unquote implants that you received, right, Alta? So let's jump into this with you. You have your night, you're going out on the town, things start out strange. Now, all of a sudden, you wake up and you're back in your apartment and you're sitting Indian style in the living room. So if you wanna take the ball and run with it from there.
Okay, so just for clarity, because I would have never known the difference until I had the experience, of course, and that is I actually didn't wake up that morning. I came to, and it was very different. Let me just say that, like everything else has been. It was so different because my eyes just popped open. And I'm coming out of that other experience that I'll describe here to have my eyes pop open. And I'm sitting, as I described, rubbing my arms, feeling this, something in my upper arm as I'm rubbing my arms. And of course my immediate is, I'm still halfway in that experience. I'm now halfway realizing I'm in my home. The first thing I see, of course, is light blaring through my window and realizing, oh my God, Jesus, it's the next day. Oh my God, where is Chad? Where is our friend? And, just immediately going into an internal panic.
Can I interrupt you just real quick? I'm sorry, Alta. Something popped in my head here. So that's a good clarification. You didn't just wake up back in your apartment. You came to. Your eyes popped open. Now, it's interesting that you were sitting in the living room Indian style. So you were sitting up. It's not like you were laying in bed and then your eyes popped open. Is that something that you guys would partake in? Like, do you meditate or do you do any sort of anything where you would be sitting Indian style on the floor like that?
No meditation. I certainly have tried, but I'm not good at that at all. And but I have always sat Indian style when I'm private. Not necessarily on the floor, just about anywhere I am. It's just a natural way for me to sit. So in this particular instant, I'm sitting straight up, and as one would be probably in a meditative style, but that's not normal for me, let me assure you, because when I'm sitting on the daybed in my normal stance, I've got big pillows around me and I'm all cozied up in it and, very cozy and comfy, and I like comfort. And I'm sitting up. And
okay. Yeah, I was just wondering about that. So thanks for going with me on that little ride there. So yeah, continue, please. Okay, and so please forgive me, Shannon. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to bore anybody. That's okay. No, you were just saying you were worried about Chad and your friend, and you were basically just starting to maybe really open your eyes and look around and be like, okay, I'm back in the apartment.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I had ever mentioned before about, anything from that point forward as far as my experience. So what I do then is I have a view of my bedroom from my point of vantage of where I'm sitting, and I see a big lump in my bed, meaning the blankies are pulled up over into the form of a long lump. And I'm thinking immediately, I'm praying to the heavens that lump belongs to me, as in Chad. And so I'm taking note of that. And as I get up to start to go in that direction, my bathroom happened to be right there, closest in proximity. So I veered off and decided, what the hay is in my arm? And I'm just going to check my arm, and then I'm going to go make sure that that lump belongs to me. But I'm also taking note, where is our friend? Where is she? Well, so all of this is happening at the same time. And I get in the bathroom, I get a pair of tweezers, I pull this very tiny, and without any exaggeration, because I am lousy with measurement and numbers, less than 1/8 of an inch or something of that nature, thing out of my arm, my upper arm, that feels solid when it's in my arm, such as when I was running my hand over my arm, it was sharp, like it was like a sticker or a thorn of some kind, teeny, like on a cactus. But what I remember very clearly is there was never any pain of any kind, and I just, on top of being weirded out, that's weirding me out. And when I pull this out of my arm, it leaves a teeny tiny hole, like a little pinhole, and it's solid at first, but then it immediately between my fingertips starts to change. It changes from a solid to, it becomes a bit transparent or translucent, and it's liquidy, and it's, feeling liquidy. And at that very moment, as quickly as I'm telling you this, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out inside, and I want that off me. I turn on the faucet, and I begin to scrub my hands. And then I decide to walk very quickly towards Chad, praying that that's Chad in that bed. And so as I start to move towards the bedroom, Chad is already up at this point, and he is moving towards me. And what I'm taking note of very quickly is he looks lost. And that's not what I want to see. I need him to tell me what has happened to us, and he can't. And so at this stage now, we are both aware that neither of us can explain anything. I then, in a very upset tone, make it clear that I've got something in my arm. Because, I'm sorry, let me back up very quickly. When I pulled that, whatever that was out of the arm, it left a fairly large lump. When I say large, I mean like this, not huge, like the size of a chiclet. If you know what chiclets is.
Mm-hmm.
What is? Like Chad's saying, like a good-sized mosquito bite when it's whelped. So I make that very clear to him. My arm, Chad, my arm. And, he's still pretty quiet. And I can still feel he's lost. And then he walks around me, and he sees the back of my arms where I'd never taken the time to look at all of my body because I was too busy with the trauma in the front of my body. So I'm just trying to get to Chad. So I'll have Chad describe to you what it was he actually saw.
Yeah, I came around, and after I finally was able to focus, and I look, and there's like 3 or 4 long fingerprints, like that go all the way around Alta's arms on both sides, as if, there was, something on both sides of her or from behind holding her up.
Mm.
So these were light, I guess, bruises.
Yeah, light bruises.
And that, again, there was no pain of any kind, and they only lasted a day or so.
I'm sorry. Was this on both arms or just the arm that had this odd thing that you pulled out with the implant?
Yeah, this was on both arms.
Wow. That must have been more than a little upsetting after you'd already pulled this thing out of your arm, Alta.
Oh, man. There's no words. In that regards, there's no words to describe because, again, in all of our honesty, our highest concern at this point is, where is our friend? Where is she? Because now at least we've got each other accounted for. As insane as the situation is, we have each other accounted for. Where is she? And Shannon, you've been kind enough to share with us that you received the book. If I don't know if you've had an opportunity or not, but there's a portion of our book that we've never really been public about on any of the shows that we've been, honored to be on. And so it involved a loss of our friend years prior, a death. And so that is just precedence in my mind. Where is our friend?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And, that's something that has never really been dealt with in the sense of what I ever felt. Is anybody ever really grasping the intensity of that?
Right. And I completely understand how it's hard to talk about that stuff. So, yeah, that is no problem at all. Something else.
No, we're more than open. I'm sorry, Shannon. We are more than open. Yeah, no, we're extremely open. We're most interested in folks really grasping, if possible, the real big picture here of the idea of all of this is hitting at one time. And we've had people, I'll just offer this also, we've had people in the past who've questioned everything about us, but in particular, why didn't we take pictures? And why didn't I save that, whatever that was? And the fact is, of course, we are in so much trauma, we're not thinking nothing other than where is our friend. So,
well, and I think it's easy to judge from afar. And of course, now that you would probably tag yourself more as investigators, and now you're authors and you're doing shows. It's easy now because now you're taking pictures. You sent me pictures, which I will be sharing. It's easy now to look back and go, well, yeah, of course we should have taken pictures. But when you're in the moment, all you're trying to do is figure out what in the hell happened to you.
Oh boy, that's right. And where is our friend?
Yeah, well, and you still didn't know where your third companion from the night was. So
that's right. We're on a street corner, and then all of a sudden she's gone.
Yeah, very odd street corner to start off with. I mean, the whole night was so odd. I still cannot get over that. That would have just absolutely tripped me out, man. The total matrix right there. Man. It's like you're waiting for the lady in the red dress or something, right? You're like, where's Keanu? I don't even see him. He's not even here. Something else that I wrote down about your arm. You said that the object can, to this day, move down to the bone and change shape. Does it still do that? It
certainly. Now, I'd like to also preface, I absolutely cannot feel it move, but there'll be times where it will stand out in my arm, where it's actually pushing against the skin, like it seems like it's just underneath the top layer of skin, just like a big bug bite. Or there'll be times where it will be all the way buried down to the bone, where you wouldn't know it like right now, Shannon, if you and I were physically together, as creepy as this sounds, you could actually touch this. You could feel its perimeter. You could feel its sharpness. It would freak you out, it has me all these years, as to how it doesn't pop out of my skin, but it doesn't. And there are times that it appears, and that's how I state it, is that it appears, because I can't prove it, that it seems to change shape. But again, I don't feel any of that, which is even creepier.
Yeah, absolutely. I also seem to remember a portion from the book where you said that at one point you were, I hope I'm not misremembering this, you were at one point thinking of just grabbing a knife out of the kitchen and just cutting yourself open and seeing what in the world this is, but you kind of are torn with that because you're like, well, it must be there for a reason, and that's also another reason I think and there's also a little misstep of communication sometimes, but maybe that's for a reason, much like our Skype call cutting off last time for the trickster element maybe, is having a doctor just do it. But there always seems to be something amiss there, right? Like it never does seem to happen. But do you think that if you just grab the tweezers again, that you could just pull more of that stuff out and nothing would change, really?
Oh, no, there's nothing to pull out. Oh. That little teeny tiny hole, it went away very quickly, just like bruises did. There's no way you can look at my arm and see that there's anything there. There's no way. It's not possible. There's no scarring, there's no incision, there's no nothing. It's a pure arm that every once in a while it will stand out where you could look and see a bump or a lump. But there's, like Chad
You'd have to cut the skin to actually get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'd have to have surgery.
What do you think's in there, though? What's your best guess on that?
I'm absolutely clueless.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely clueless, and it frustrates people tremendously because I've been consistent all these years indicating that I am clueless. And the more I learn...
that's the best answer. I like that you said that, because more people need to say that about a lot of things, right? They should say they don't know. That's okay.
We did. I will offer this for anybody who's interested in exploring it further, just like I've been forced to do, that Whitley Strieber, if that's a familiar name to you, is he has a show himself, a radio show, and he's a famous author who has what he calls I call these unknowns for the very specific reason because I feel that no one understands. But there's so much, of course, I don't know. But Whitley Strieber has he calls them an implant because he says he remembers it being implanted in his ear, in the area of his ear, not in the ear, but around the lobe or something. Well, anyhow, he's allowed that to go on video that anybody can YouTube or Google. Forgive me because I am not computer savvy, but I have seen this myself, where you can actually see where a medical doctor is in his opened him up to remove that object, and that object moves, and it will not allow itself to be, in essence, caught by those scalpels. So they both decide, that medical doctor and Whitley Strieber both decide, we're just going to leave it there, and we're not going to do that again.
Yeah, I wonder if yours would act the same way.
Well, I can say this, that when I went in for the original x-rays, it was unbelievable what I went through, and, Chad and I could write a book just about that insanity, but the reality is that the object chose to not take a picture the first 2 times. Now, that object was standing out in my arm where the x-ray tech could see the lump. Now, she's beyond freaking out at this point. This was a very, very uncomfortable situation for Chad and I to be put through. But I went through it because I was requested to do this in order for somebody to work with us that then chose not to work with us. But the reality is, again, not playing victim, this is our truth, that object wouldn't take a picture the first 2 times. Now, when I went back for a second x-ray, because I was told I had to get a second x-ray, the object chose to do the same thing the first time. It refused to take a picture. It was only on the second time. Now, can't explain any of this. Can't explain it. And again, folks, investigate Whitley Strieber and understand who this man is and his, notoriety and so on and so forth. And I invite, please check out that video. And then one last I offer about the unknown, because I can't offer anything else other than what I've discovered on my own, that if I'm listening to this conversation, this is what I'd want to be hearing, is that a man by the name of Dr. Roger Lear, who has now passed on, he's the one who requested my x-rays in the first place. Well, Dr. Roger Lear had a small team, from what I understand, kind of gathered up that were assisting him in these implants and removal and study of. If I understood correctly, they had managed to receive or take out 17 of them. Dr. Lear had a gentleman that was a part of his team that's also known as Dr. Robert Kuntz, and I believe it's Koontz, who, if I'm not mistaken, is a theoretical physicist. This gentleman posted his findings online of some of these objects, these implants, and I don't even begin to understand some of the science of any of this, but what I can tell you that I did understand is he said, these are his words, it is online, that he's convinced that whoever, whatever society or what have you that's involved in these implants are at least 100 million years in advance of humans.
That's even hard to fathom.
That's right. That's all I had to hear, and I said, well, there you have it.
No wonder they can get out of the way of the ultrasound pictures and dissolve in your hand, huh?
Right.
This Dr. Robert Kuntz, I know that Dr. Lear has passed on, that was a huge blow to the research for abductions and UFO cases in general. Is that team, including Robert Kuntz, are they still carrying that torch and doing that work?
To the best of my knowledge, no. Not at all.
Why
no
is
one
that?
Right. Exactly.
That
Well, there's much
seems really strange.
I have discovered a great deal of just becoming my own researcher, and I just offer for anybody who's interested to explore it and help us understand, try to find answers, to get help, what have you. I will say this also, though, again, in all honesty, as I've always tried to be in chat as well and sharing what's been happening with us, it was very clear that it was required, not a possibility. You had to sign away the objects if Dr. Lear removed them from you. You no longer had any more connection with them. That's not something that I feel that I'm even willing to consider to do at this point. So I have no idea, because again, I have another one that's in my wrist that won't take an x-ray at all. They seem to be very different. And so again, there's just so much, question about everything, and it doesn't appear that anybody seems either to be interested or running with this, because I can't find anyone.
It just seems strange that he had a whole team, and these are ultra intelligent people, and they just decided to step away because he passed on.
I did have a chance to speak to one of his team, Steve, and I can't think of his last name right at the moment, but he'd be very easy to find in terms of being a part of the research with Dr. Lear. Again, I believe this gentleman's a biochemist. And we did speak on the phone. He was kind enough to want to talk to me on the telephone for a period of time. We had a fairly long conversation, and I made it clear to him. I said, well, sir, I am curious. Would any of you ever be interested in exploring this and studying this with this in our bodies rather than it having to be removed? And he certainly indicated that was an interesting thought, but made it clear he'd get back to us at some point if it was to ever develop into anything. And of course, that's never happened. So, yeah, it's very interesting.
It just seems like I get the whole, if you're a physicist or a biochemist, it's a very, that's a gray area. Once you start stepping into the paranormal, your title will get tainted and you might lose tenure, but they were already doing the work, so it's not like they stepped away to cleanse their titles, because they were already soiled to a lot of their colleagues probably. So that's an interesting side of it. I didn't realize that none of his team were continuing the work, so that's a little conspiratorial if you ask me. I'm not trying to be, but it just seems a little bit strange.
Right. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's nothing you're thinking that certainly hasn't, like Chad's saying, been thought.
Yeah. You can't help it but go there. I mean, they were doing all that work for however long and removing, you said 17 of them. That's quite impressive. I'm sure that to them that was quite impressive work and fascinating, to say the least.
Now, I will also, just the tail end of all of this part of the conversation is, there is a gentleman that's becoming very well known out in the world, Jeremy Corbell, I believe is his name.
Yeah, he did an entire film on this.
Right. Okay, you're aware then.
Yes,
I tried contact with him and he had no interest, and I was very sad about that, because he certainly seems to have a tremendous amount of interest in this with the gentleman that I think he calls Patient 17, but I couldn't get any interest on our part at all after I had sent him our information. And also, again, it's all very strange to us.
Well, I guess you like I do, you throw the line out there and you just never know who might tug at it and who might just go on by. So
that's right.
So I have to ask you straight off the cuff here. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to kind of ask it for the listeners here before we get into your story. Did you have to be regressed to remember all of these details that you're about to talk about that night, or is this from your memory? Or from your waking memory, I should say, sorry.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Everything that I share is memory.
Okay.
Is what I call conscious memory. I paid a great deal of money to somebody that I understood was world-renowned in the field of hypnotherapy in this area, and it was a very bad connection between her and I, and it went nowhere. And so I have tried really, really with a lot of expense and a lot of emotional pain and what have you, and determination to understand what I don't remember. But everything that I have shared is conscious memory.
Okay. Well, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, let's tell everybody what happened to you that night.
So last memory is around 11 o'clock at night, sitting on a stoop, saying to Chad, I just want to go home. I am so bored, I just want to go home, in that kind of tone. And then the next thing that I know is I'm now standing on the edge of a crater. I'm alone. There's no Chad, and our friend is not with me either. I'm not afraid. I'm amazed, and I'm extremely puzzled. But I don't remember at all being afraid. I am looking down in this crater. The crater is very large, football-sized field or what have you, kind of, I believe, size. Maybe not that large, but very large, and it's fairly deep. I know I'm sounding so general, but I have a hard time on measurement. It is vacant with the exception of a metallic building or hangar or warehouse kind of looking structure down in the floor of this crater. Now there's no, as I said, there's no movement of any kind. There doesn't appear to be anything alive down there. I'm not sure if that metallic structure was, I have no idea what that was. Because what I'm describing to you now is all happening very quickly. As I'm taking that in, I'm now, my gaze is back upward again, and I'm aware that there are lights, orbs of light, white orbs of light that seem to be around the perimeter of this crater, somewhat distanced apart, but they felt alive. They felt intelligent. They're also the illumination, or, the lighting, if you will. As I'm peering around me, I'm not moving. My toes are on the edge of that crater. As I'm peering around me, this is what I am, the only way I know how to describe what I feel like I'm in the middle of is I feel like I'm in the middle of a black and white movie of the so-called landing on the moon. That's what it looks like around me. It's that kind of coloring. And it's that kind of, in terms of everything is gray, white, black, silver, and blonde. That's the coloring. So all of a sudden now I'm aware that there's something behind me. So I don't completely turn around. I somewhat kind of pivot around to the right of me, and I'm correct. And as I've said before, I hate having to tell this part of the story, but I've not left it out purposely, because again, I'm repeating it as I remember it. But it sounds so insane what I'm about to say. And that is that I'm aware, and now I'm seeing, it appears to be a small pile, as in maybe 3, I didn't count them, human-looking people piled on what I call like a dog pile, on top of each other. They're all dressed. It seems like different ages, like maybe an older man, maybe another guy, and a younger girl. And again, this is happening quickly, but my memory is that I don't see any distress on anyone's faces. It's as if they're in what I call a suspended animation.
Were they looking at you, Alta?
No.
Did anyone notice you? Okay.
No.
That part really creeped me out. It just, and to me, I'm like, why would you make something like that up, right? Like, it's such a strange, random, creepy thing. When I read that, I'm like, what in the world were those things doing? Right. What in the world? Because as I'm sitting here hearing you with, yes, this is ridiculous, this is creepy. What I find, as I've said before, the most creepy about me is I might try too hard to be helpful to people and get in the way. And in this regards, I'm not moving towards them at all. Yeah.
To see if they're okay, what the hey, what the what. I find that as creepy as everything. It's my behavior, because next thing I know, I'm now aware there's something to the left of me, and it's right next to me, like almost touching me. So I flip back around very quickly, and she's right there. And it's the blonde that is of course, it's the artist's rendition of what I've tried to describe to the best of my ability of the most beautiful, physically beautiful, internally as well, being that I'd ever seen in my life. And I didn't realize until I'm having this experience that was my idea of perfection. Mm-hmm. But she is, over 6 feet tall. She's perfectly built. She's wearing a bodysuit so that I'm aware of her, perfectly built physique. She has long blonde hair past her shoulders. She is, just as I say, the essence of perfection. And it seems to be radiating out of her. I don't care who she is. I don't ask her any questions because I don't care. I'm so happy to be with her. I don't care about anything else. I'm not aware of Chad. I'm not aware of my friend. I'm not aware of what's called home. I'm not aware of anything because as far as I'm concerned, I'm home. I am home. Now that's bizarre, but that's what I remember going through, the memory. She is, as I said, she's standing so close to me that we're almost touching. I have to put my head back to look up to her, and I'm about 5'5". So just to give you an idea, she's not exceptionally tall, but she's relatively tall. As I am taking her in, my head goes back a little further, and I'm now gazing up into the sky. It's a pure black sky around me with what appear to be, and boy, I've taken a lot of hits over this language, what appear to be like diamonds. These stars are so beautiful, and there's a glistening to them. And again, remember, I'm very childlike. As I've said before, if I had a tail, it was wagging. I was just so joyous. Or I'm a little 3-year-old, or what have you. I'm just so joyous. So as I'm seeing all this beautiful stars up in the sky, I'm having a flash memory of, this is like where I come from in Arizona in the desert sky when it's a perfect night. Well, that's weird, but that's kind of what's going on in my mind. I'm taking it in. I'm getting very happy. And then all of a sudden, one of those stars started to move. And it did some zigzagging in the sky, and then others joined in. And when this happened, I went from this, what I consider a perfect state of bliss, to a very quick state of, I've used the word terror in the past, such fear that my heart began pumping so hard and so fast I thought it was going to beat out of my chest. Because as I've said before, that what all of a sudden I realized is, if there is such a thing as logic, it popped in at that very moment saying, to Alta, stars don't do that. Something's wrong. And then in that very state of consciousness, she, in a telepathic voice to me, called me by name, but it's a tone that I could never find a replica of. It is so magnificent and so beautiful and extremely, I just want to be lost in it. And she says to me, Alta, don't be afraid. They're just scanning you. And when she said that, the end of that experience, next thing I know, I'm sitting up, coming to, if you will, the next day. So my consciousness stops at around 11 o'clock on that street corner, and it returns somewhere between 8 and 9 the next morning.
Yeah, it's very strange. The last thing that she says is, they're scanning you, don't worry, and then you wake up and you have something in your arm, right? So. Oh,
sure. If I may, I'll just add this quickly. As I've stated, I may sound so airy-fairy about all of this, but I cannot stress the range of emotions have been off the chart from one end of it to the other, in terms of from, in my case, and specifically terror, to bliss. Just crazy.
It is strange, though, isn't it, that, I mean, the whole scene is already painted, right? You're standing on the edge of a crater. There's something down in the bottom of the crater. There's these beings in the dog pile, which to me, I mean, when my mind conjures that up, it seems terrifying to me because it just seems so strange. And out of place, and what are they doing, and why didn't they look at you, or were they making any noise? I forgot to ask that. Was there any?
No.
They weren't speaking to each other, or okay.
No, it was as if they were in a suspended animation.
Okay, all right, I gotcha. Yeah, I just thought such an odd thing. But I will say it's one of my favorite parts of the book for some reason. I don't know why. It's just an odd thing with me, I guess. I just like those little odd tidbits, and that was definitely one of them. It's just so strange that out of all of that, it was, you just inherently knew, like a primal fear came out of you when the stars began to move. Like you just knew that was not good news.
Exactly.
Out of that whole experience, right? Even though there's this beautiful being next to you and the three things, whatever the heck they were doing behind you, and the crater, is just, that was what got you. That's interesting.
Absolutely. It's how it shifted that quickly.
Yeah.
And Shannon, I'm sorry again, I'm being so rude on this and stepping all over you, but I wanted to insert, as you were speaking about how you find that part so interesting, those little three or what have you piled, you may be the one, for all that we know, since you are interested in particularly that part of it, for, as you say, putting the line out where who knows who could come forward and may have had some kind of crazy experience like this, who has some answers that are, that's just amazing.
It is.
And that's to me the whole puzzle. And it is a puzzle.
Oh, well, 100%, yeah. And I wish that sometime in our lifetime, maybe we could fit a couple more pieces in there. Even just one decent-sized piece, if we could figure it out, would be amazing. But I don't know if we can get there. I hope we do.
Right.
If we could jump now to your second implant and how you came to get that, because that is also a very interesting story. And this is not in New Orleans, right? This is in another state. Right.
If I may, have Chad and I shared with you also about our friend and all that happened to her that was taken with us that night?
No, we hadn't touched on that. I wasn't sure how much of that you guys wanted to cover. I know she doesn't remember a lot, but where she was driving and that whole thing is a really good part of the story. So if you are comfortable with that, I would like to include that in.
Yeah, well, I find it fascinating because, again, it ties in a whole other portion of this involving a cryptid, so me, it kind of like, again, it's the high strangeness of all of this. So I thought if you are interested, we'd love to share that with you. And if you
go right ahead. Absolutely.
Well, all right then, and kind of the shorter version of it, and I will try to speed this up a little bit. The last thing she remembers, now she's very foggy, we understand, because I had her put it in writing. It was 7 years after the encounter happened to us. Ours took place in 97. This was in, I said 7 years later. I had her write her portion and sign it for us because I always knew that she was never interested in coming forward. And I always knew, now I had no idea we were going to eventually write a book on this, but that was never our intention. So I was always trying to find help and others. So, and I made that clear to her and that I would never stop unless I became so frightened. And so she understood that about us. She agreed to put her portion of this in writing. When she wrote her portion of this, she indicates to us that she feels pretty foggy coming across the quarter. And I found that interesting because we don't remember that in having the experience with her. We all were intact. We all were in motion, just trying to have a party that night, dinner and drinks, and it just was not happening. In her writing of her account, she's, as I said, sounding pretty foggy. And she, so what happens with her is the last thing she remembers, again, collectively around 11 o'clock, just like Chad and I do. And then the next thing she knows is she's now behind the steering wheel of her moving car. The car is moving slowly, and it hit a parked car, and it knocked off her rear view mirror, which is what jolted her to. She says that she's in a whole other section of the city from where she had parked that car that morning. She said that the car is driving, so now she's coming to, if you will, and she's steering the car, but it seems almost as if the car is driving itself. The car ends up in a whole another section of the city that is not a particularly nice area. She says it's somewhere between 3 and 4 in the morning, so she has from 11 till then completely missing. There's nothing in between. When she ends up in this neighborhood that she would never normally be in, especially at that time in the morning, it's at a guy's house that she had just broken up with prior to us being taken that night. I'll back up very quickly. That guy's, his name is Will. I called him Dark Boy because he was her polar opposite. She was tall, slender, with long blonde hair and a very gregarious laugh and very joyous human being who also was very serious. When she needed to be serious, she had no problem with that. Very committed to the earth in the sense of helping the earth heal, and not a airy-fairy person at all. She's gone on to get a degree in environmental science, to give you an idea. She was just always been committed to ecology and so on. She is dating this guy for a minute in her life, very short. At the time, she was 24, no kids, never had been married. They date for just a very short time. When she decides to not see him or just tell him she likes him but she wants to see other people, she invites him over to her house. It's daytime. They're on the front porch. She lived in a duplex at the time. She said they're standing on the front porch. They're face to face. He is, she says that she's telling him that she likes him but kind of language. She says he's becoming extremely emotional, like an internal emotional. And she said that he literally turned into a wolf in front of her face. She said she shifted her head away. She snapped her head away in shock. And I understood exactly what she was saying when she said this to us, because that's what I did when I first saw that massive UFO back in 1995 that started all of this. So she said when she flipped her head away, now they're face to face. She turned right back again. She said he had shifted human and then shifted a second time in front of her face. She said that when he did it the second time, now he's shifting, instantaneous. She said when he shifted the second time into human again, she said in a very, and I'll clean up the language, she said in a very direct, startled, or direct voice, you just turned into a effing wolf. She said he responded in a very startled voice, you saw that. Mm. So she didn't need, just like I don't, or Chad, for anybody to, in essence, try to prove to us what we have seen and been through, but that absolutely proved to her that she saw what she saw. Well,
Alta, can I just ask really quickly, is this gentleman full Native American?
What we discovered was, I called him Dark Boy because he had long black hair, very cute, but he was her opposite, and he had a darkness about him. And what we've learned, and as I finish this little story for you, it'll make perfect sense about him. His mother, we discovered after all of this, was a voodoo priestess. Mm. And Chad's saying a swamp witch. A swamp witch.
A swamp witch. Well, that sounds dire. What's the difference? What's the swamp witch thing? Can you guys explain that one to me?
Well,
no, just like
you gotta come to New Orleans.
Yeah, we opened that can of worms. We gotta go down this road now.
Yeah, it's fairly kind of regional here. It's kind of the old Acadian kind of culture. So they have a lot of their beliefs along with the Voodoos, the Cajuns. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of Cajun and all these different nationalities and all of their beliefs and.
So they got swamp witches.
Yeah, so I'm just envisioning muddy, mud in the hair, crusty old woman, like Radagast the Brown from The Hobbit, right? Like, just are these purported to live in the woods, like in the swamp?
Yeah, it just depends on how deep in the swamp you go.
Oh, man, forget that. I'll take a gator. Oh, my gosh.
We did. We had a gator. We took a gator over any of that.
Seriously.
to
Yeah.
prove it.
Oh,
yeah.
swamp
We
witch.
met a man when we first moved to Louisiana. That's a whole other book in itself. That because we came here extremely naive, and as Chad's saying, green. And this gentleman had been orphaned for the most part when he was a little boy. Now he's very Cajun, hardly speaks English. His friend, Cajun, was raised by a swamp witch, and some of the secrets we discovered about him were just enough to start to open us up to realizing we were in way over our head. Because it's the real deal.
Okay, are swamp witches? I probably know the answer to this. I can guess. Are they always bad, or are they doing nice light and love kind of sorts of spells and such?
Yeah, it's all the above. I mean, they do the earth, and you know that
all
you have
the above.
Yeah, it's good,
like
bad,
everything
and
else.
different. You know, just like anything.
Right. Good people, bad people. Right. Well, I have to say, I just made a note of the old swamp witches, and that sounds like a 2-part episode to me. I'm going to have to find somebody to talk about that.
Yeah.
Do you know the Rougarou?
Yes.
Oh, good, because they deal
definitely.
with swamp witches.
Yeah, they deal with the swamp witches. So that was something that kind of tied, you know, him changing into this
Wolfie boy,
and then to come to find out his, you know, this swamp witch. So yeah, they have a big Rougarou festival down here in Houma, Louisiana, and they deal with they have the swamp witch pageant and.
Oh boy. Yeah. How have I never heard of the swamp witch? And I love Rougarou. I mean, who doesn't love that word? It just rolls right off your tongue, right? The Rougarou. Yeah, I think that's a good party to come to, huh? I like that.
We were invited to come and bring our book. They're very excited. This little book has come out, so we're certainly entertaining the idea. So again, it's big. People come from all over the world for this now. It's growing in leaps and bounds. A lot of the money is dedicated and donated to trying to save the marshlands and all that are being destroyed.
Yeah, that's a really good cause then.
Yeah, it's put on by the people that take care of it and everything. You know, it's the national park or whatever you call it, regional here. You know, it's that
put this on.
Yeah,
right. It's becoming a very big deal. So please think about coming to visit.
I would love that, and I'll find the link for that nice party coming down there, and I'll link that in the show notes if anyone is in. I have plenty of listeners in that area, so maybe they can come and visit.
Awesome.
You guys in the old swamp witch pageant. That's amazing. Oh, man.
You'll enjoy the videos. You need to look at the videos.
I do. How have I never heard of a swamp witch? That's amazing. Okay, I'm sorry. I totally just derailed the train. So let's get back to your friend and her what'd you call him? The dark boy, but then the wolf boy, right?
Call him the Wolfie boy,
Wolfie boy, there you go.
He's the Wolfie boy, yeah. So she ends up in his neighborhood, and he lives in now this is somebody that she's never going to see again, needless to say, intentionally never going to see again. And here she's in his hood. She says she drives up. He lives in a old house, big old house that's been converted maybe into a fourplex. He's got the downstairs apartment. She said this place is normally surrounded in a great big iron gate, kind of fence, what have you, and the gate's always locked. But of course, just like I've said in the past, like a bad, creepy movie, the gate's open. So she gets out of her car, she goes up the steps, up onto his porch. He's sitting right inside the front door. Either the door's wide open and it's a screen door or what have you. She can see him. She says he's playing guitar. He's sitting under a light fixture, so overhead lamp, what have you, but she can see him. She said that he stops playing guitar. She goes up in the house. Then she says that she starts to become extremely Chad just reminded me that, thank you, Chad, that he stops playing guitar as she enters in to the house and says, either I've been waiting for you or we've been waiting for you.
Oh.
Yeah. And then she says she starts to fall apart kind of a controlled hysteria. And as I've mentioned before, we've known her forever, and I don't remember ever seeing her cry. And she starts crying uncontrollably. She says he puts the guitar down, he guides her into a room, lays her down, and she says she cries herself to sleep. She said that her eyes, she wakes up and she's dressed, and it doesn't appear that he's done anything to her. And she says the sun, she thinks, the way she indicates, the sun seems to just be rising. So she feels like she's only been there maybe an hour or so. She said that she gets up and she gets the flock out of Dodge and she doesn't look back. So that's her account for that night into the next day. Now, just to finish it up on that creepy story, this happened in 97. If we can fast forward to 2001, Chad and I've already been through all kinds of unbelievable experiences out of New Orleans into New Mexico, up into Colorado, back to New Orleans again by 2001. Chad and I are not doing very well with each other. We're, as I said in the past, we're imploding. And Chad decides to leave New Orleans and go to Alabama, where his father lived in a small community, and his mother, and to go to work for his dad and his dad's business. I chose to stay behind in New Orleans. And so Chad and I are separated at this point now for 3 months. It was shocking not only to us, but anybody who knew us. One day, I come out of work. It's a beautiful afternoon in the quarter. It's packed like normal. And it's, as I say, a beautiful day with no humidity, which is really unusual. And I'm taking in this beautiful air because I'm not doing very well with the separation with Chad. All of a sudden, I hear somebody yell my name kind of through the crowd. The name Alta definitely stands out. When I see who's hollering at me, it's a friend that I haven't seen in years who is very tall. He's close to 7 foot tall, and he's thin, so he even looks taller. And he happens to be from Montauk, New York, originally. Well, I didn't know anything about Montauk at the time, but I've done a lot of study on that area since, and I found out a lot of strange stuff about that area.
Indeed,
so this guy is a traveling artist. Well, he's been gone for a long time. We haven't seen each other. He asked me if I want to go and have a drink. We choose a little outdoor cafe. He orders a Coke. I order, I think, a beer. By the time that it takes him to roll a cigarette, he says to me, now he's asking me about Chad, and I tell him that we separated. He's in shock, and we speak about it for a few minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he shifts the conversation, just like I'm doing right now. And he says, "Hey, have you heard about Will?" And I said, "Will? Are you talking about Dark Boy?" I said, "How do you know him?" "Oh my God, I didn't even know you knew him." Well, that shocked me, but just because the conversation shifted so quickly to this creepy guy. And so, but it wouldn't probably be that strange because all the artists knew each other in the community, what have you. So anyhow, I'm like, "No, what? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Yeah," he said, he went around telling everybody he was catching a bus out of town because the aliens were after him. Now, when he said that to me, this conversation was over. The guy basically ended the conversation. As soon as he said this to me, he just basically had to tell me that, and then he had to go. And I'm like, okay.
And you hadn't seen this guy in years, and he blurts that out, and he's like, "Well, see you, Alta. Nice knowing you. Gotta go."
I ain't even kidding. It had been a couple of years, and at that very moment, I'm not thinking paranormal, high strangeness. I'm thinking, where are the cameras?
Right.
I'm in the worst candid camera that exists, and that everybody is laughing at me, and I am somebody's big joke because I am so flipped out, I can't think straight. So that's the story on Wolfie Boy and our friend. And so then, if you're still interested, Shannon, if I haven't lost you, you had originally asked me about the second object.
Yeah, no, that was a good detour because it's shapeshifters and swamp witches. So who doesn't like to talk about that stuff? And Alta said hood, so my day is complete. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, well,
if you want to talk about the second object in your wrist, I would love for you to, of course.
Well, so Chad and I reunite after 3 months, not long after this little encounter with Giant Boy out of Montauk.
Giant Boy.
I mean, it's just all just getting so creepy. I would like to also offer for anybody kind enough hearing us, we're still in touch with our friend. She's long distance from us. We haven't seen her in some time, but we are still very much in touch with her that was taken with us. So we've not lost contact all these years. So now...
I'm sorry. I'm going to interrupt you again. I'm so sorry. We're both bad at that, aren't we? We do it to each other. Is she ever going to get regressed? Does she want to get regressed?
The last that I ever knew about it, she had no interest in any of it. So it's hard to say. You know, you just, like I said, you never know. You just never know.
Yeah.
She has a lot of, I feel, a lot more interesting information and knowledge and experiences. But again, this is something that she's made clear that the last that we ever knew anything about. She certainly seems to be supportive of us, but we have not had any sense of her having an interest in coming forward any further about it.
Okay.
So.
All right. I'll be quiet now. You go forward.
Oh, I love it. We love it. So, okay, so Chad and I have reunited now. It's, again, 2001. He has come after me, retrieved me, and we're now off to Alabama. So we're living in a small community, a small lake community in Alabama, and we are buying a home, and we're kind of in the boonies, still a bit town connected, but pretty rural. And at that time, there was some small woods right behind our little property. Chad had fenced off our property, and we had also, at that point, had inherited a small alligator and pet turtles and lizards, and we just had a very strange menagerie that we had brought from living in Louisiana.
Well, where's that gator now? Did you guys drive out to Lake Placid and, let it go out there?
You know, you are so funny because she was growing pretty good, and I had told Chad, we got a problem here because she's prehistoric, and that means you can't train them.
Right.
And that means, so what ends up happening is those little woods that were behind us came down, and they started putting homes in behind us that had children. And I told Chad, if a kid comes up missing, you know who they're going to come after. So I said, Chad, we got to find her a home. So we found her a home at a living museum where she was going to actually be used for education, and she had it good. She ended up
cool.
They made a billboard out of her for the city and everything.
Oh, that's probably really cool to see. You're like, there's my baby.
Out of her picture, right.
What were you guys feeding her there at the end while you guys still had her?
Well, chicken. I would feed her chicken breasts, and then I built an outdoor pond. Actually, she was a little She was a caiman.
Oh, cool.
Which are meaner than alligators.
Which are even meaner.
Yeah. Don't they have the longer, meaner looking snouts of their teeth look? I mean, umpteen thousand times sharper than a croc.
Right.
We have pictures. We'll send you.
I would love to. What's the gator's or the caiman's name?
We named it Manchac, which is...
Now, Chad just called her an it. She's a her. Of course, we don't know. Of course she's a her, and it's American Indian for man-eater.
Perfect. Well, there you go. How big was Manchac before she got turned over to the museum?
She was about 3 foot. Almost 4 foot long.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Did you guys have any close calls when you were out in the yard with her, feeding her or anything?
No, I had her kind of in her own little area. I'd built a gold, like a big goldfish pond that you'd see in somebody's garden, and then fenced it with some the really small chicken wire. And she had about a 20 by 20, so she had pretty good space.
Neighbors are like, what the hell kind of koi fish is that? What do you guys have going on over there?
They got piranhas. They don't have goldfish.
Like, who needs Rottweilers? We've got Manchek.
Exactly.
And actually, we had a Rottweiler. We had a
Oh,
Rottweiler
did you?
and a Great Dane at the time.
Oh my goodness! I love you guys. I'm a big animal fan. I'm always like, man, I at least need a pig, a goat, a gator, a snake. No spiders, but anything else is fair game.
Well, we had the turtles, the crocodile, the two big dogs, a couple of lizards, and then my dad had camels, a Z-donk.
A Z-donk.
Yeah, have you ever heard of a Z-donk?
No, but I know right off the bat what it is. I can picture it.
There's Z-donks, which are zebras and donkeys. They got zonies, which are zebras and ponies. and they got commas, which are camels and llamas.
We've got pictures to prove all of it.
Oh my gosh. Hey, what you got there? Oh, it's a comma, a zony. That is incredible. I am learning all sorts of things on this episode.
He had all these. They had baby kangaroo, the wallabies. They had little wallaby kangaroos and cockatoo and.
That's what they grow in Alabama.
Peacocks.
Oh, they're just growing those to feed to the gators. You guys know that.
Yeah, between the two, we could have opened up a zoo.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say you gotta charge admission. Yeah, no one's gonna be hopping the back fence and getting into your house. I'll tell you that.
Oh, no.
Not then. No.
But
I was just joking about the Rottweiler. You're like, no, we had one of those too. I'm like, well, good Lord, no one's getting in your place.
We had our sign at the door. It had a picture, or at the gate, it had a picture of a Rottweiler on it, and it said, "I can make it to the fence in 2.3 seconds. Can you?" That's
right. Yeah, like you got some delicious hawks I can just sink my teeth into, and if I don't get you somehow, then the caiman will. There you go.
No, that's right.
Just need to chase it right into the little koi fish pond, but there's no fishies in there. All right. So we're getting on some really good tangents tonight, guys. I appreciate it.
Actually, we did have a few koi, and I would go and get bait fish at the bait store, so she would have something to keep her occupied.
Yeah, I would imagine the koi fish wouldn't last very long.
No,
there were a few smart ones that lasted. They got pretty big.
Find a good hiding spot.
Yeah, I guess so.
A little crevasse somewhere in the pond, and live a life of complete terror, like 24/7.
Oh, well, with all of this conversation, Shannon, I actually have. I had an encounter in that backyard with a girlfriend that involved invisible Sasquatchy, and the most terrifying thing I've ever been through in my life, and I've had a lot of scary. And when this is happening to us in that backyard, Chad's asleep in bed. Our friend that was originally taken with us off that street corner in 97 had flown in to visit me that weekend for my birthday. And the girl that I was having the insane encounter with in the backyard had flown in from another state to celebrate my birthday that day. And while we're having our insane experience in the backyard with Sasquatchy, everybody is asleep or knocked out, including my Great Dane and she was a half Rottweiler, half Doberman. They were all knocked out. Mm. Now, our experience was so loud that there was no doubt to us that the whole town was hearing this. There was no doubt to us. Everybody in that community had to hear what we were being put through. And yet, when it was all over and we got inside our house, everybody is completely knocked out or asleep, whatever one wants to call it. So, it's just, it has been absolutely hysterical and terrifying and a three-ring circus and So just finishing up the little tidbit about the object in my wrist, I'm in bed with Chad. It's 2000 and, at this point, we'd moved 2001. It's now about 2002, I believe. Chad and I have gone to bed, and I'm asleep, and the next thing I know, I'm now standing in my backyard. It's pitch black out. I'm wide awake. I've never sleepwalked in my life. And again, I'm conscious. I'm very aware that I'm awake, and I'm now in my backyard. And I'm, at that moment, very aware as well that there is something that feels like it's about thigh high on me, to the left of me, up against me, or very close to me, that as I looked down to try to figure out what the hell I was dealing with, the impression of Cousin It is what came across me, is that I had a
Man,
It
that's freaky.
standing next to me. And before I could deal with it, I hear her talking to me out of the heavens above me. And when I say her, it's that female, that blonde that I'm on the crater with years prior. It's her voice, and it's that tone. And that's the hardest part to get across in describing any of this to anybody, if you've never experienced the Twilight Zone, is that it's that tone that I am so in love with, and I'm trying, as I've said before, to fall up to her, because it's coming out of the sky. But now the tone is the same. It's her voice, but it's a language I've never heard before in my life. I have no idea what this language is, but I'm amazed. Now, how crazy do I sound? I know, Shannon, I sound absolutely insane, because at one second I've got Cousin It, and now I'm in this right. So as I'm dealing with that, and I'm just having this moment of, I don't know, just I need to get to her feeling. All of a sudden, to the right of me, out of the sky, is this booming male voice, and he is not nice, and he's speaking English, and he calls me by name, and then he, in a worse tone, because I felt like I was a child and I was about to be spanked. It was that kind of fear that came over me. And he had this fatherly, like you're a bad kid, kind of bad child tone. And he said, Alta, in the worst way, don't bother being afraid. Like I was being chastised because he was scaring the poop right out of me. Mm-hmm. And when that happened, as I'm having that emotion shift, this is all about emotions. It's all about sound. There's no doubt to me. Light. As that's happening to me, at the very end of that statement he made to me, my wrist appeared to explode in light. It was absolutely terrifyingly beautiful. There was no pain at all, but it's as if there was the only way I know how to describe it is as if I'd had a bomb in my wrist of light that exploded. And when that happened, that's the last conscious memory. The next thing I know, it's the next morning, I'm in bed. I wake Chad up, and I tell him, Chad, it happened again. You know, like a child, I'm almost pleading with him. And he's trying to wake up saying, okay, Alta, okay. And not that he didn't believe me, but I'm showing him my wrist, and you can't see anything. It just looks like my normal wrist, so I just sound crazier than a loon. And so it took a few years after that happened to me to have a friend who was a woman who had started school late in life. She was in her 40s, decided to become an ultrasound tech. She got her license. She carried a portable ultrasound machine around, traveled hospitals, as a traveling ultrasound tech. Well, she lived a couple hours from us, but all of a sudden one day I get a phone call from her, and she just happens to be in my neighborhood. Well, that makes no sense. 2 hours away, happens to be in my neighborhood. okay, I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. She says, I've got my little machine. I'm going to come by, Alta. We're going to take a look. Well, I could tell in the voice that what she was, I'm just presuming, she's going to check me out because she's positive I'm crazy. And she wants to help me see that I'm crazy. And she needs to see. So she comes by my house. She lays me down on my couch. She's one of these kind of gals, just like our other friend, who's not an emotional kind of person. She's kind of hard-edged and, pretty serious about life, so on and so forth. Well, as she begins to literally scan my wrist with that ultrasound machine, she did a bit of a gasp, and that's not something I ever expected to hear out of her. And it wasn't exaggerated, but it shocked her, and I could hear it. And what she said was, basically, Alta, I couldn't write a report for a doctor if I wanted to, because whoever or whatever put that there is, I think, the word she used. It's not casting a shadow, and that's impossible. And that's what I was left with. So I went, just to finish that story up, a couple years later, I would say, I think about a couple years later, I decided to get new x-rays done of the object in my upper arm. And the doctor who agreed to do these x-rays knew I was coming to her. It was a different doctor from the original doctor, and she knew I was coming to her for specifically this purpose, this reason. She was open to it. So she x-rayed my upper arm and the object. Those are the x-rays you have. And then she x-rayed my wrist, and it refused to take an x-ray. So I have no physical proof on my wrist, but I certainly got the proof I need. I didn't need proof, but I certainly got it via my friend in the ultrasound machine.
So, Alta, why do you think this time was different? What do you think, first of all, first question would be, do you think you were taken that time?
Well, again, if I'm having conscious memory as I understood it, I certainly wasn't taken.
Yeah, like there was no missing time in that one. You just, you were standing there, flash of light, and the voices.
Now, sorry, it is missing getting me out in the backyard, and it's missing getting me back to bed, just like the original time. I'm missing coming off that corner, and I'm missing being returned home. It's identical.
So then the question now, of course, gets posed to you, and you've already kind of intimated this, but you would absolutely run right into a hypnotherapist's office if the right person came along to see what all else is in there, right? What all has happened to you.
I'm not sure about run right into, just because, again, I've gone through so much negative in this area. But what I am absolutely open to is to know that whoever would be willing to work with me is open to me. Because that I discovered seemed very important. That's what was so Chad, if I might back up on Chad very quickly, speaking about Chad's situation, because I was not in the room when Chad was regressed, but it was done in our home. But the woman that regressed Chad, they had a beautiful rapport with each other. That's why we felt this was a good move on all of our part, because they just had such a nice rapport with each other. And it was so sad. It wasn't until he got in the middle of that regression that you could hear she was afraid. She was in over her head, and she had never dealt with this subject before. So it would appear, and what I remember clearly always hearing in the regression is that every time that Chad would start to describe being with a different being, because in his account, he's been with at least 3, possibly 4, possibly 5 different types of beings. And none of them are my blonde woman. And in my account, I'm not with any of his. So all very different.
But unless that's repressed somewhere.
Sure, absolutely.
Because while you were on the edge of the crater and he's up in the ship, it's like, were you guys in the same place at the same time at any point in time during those hours or whatever their time frame is on that side of things, right?
Exactly. And where is our friend?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we're open to all of that. And so just finishing it, my point of that basically is the fact that every time that they would get, he'd get to a place of dealing with a different being, I would hear her become very afraid in the tape of the regression, and she'd then immediately start to move him away from that. Yeah. And I'd be on the other end just like, chewing nails, like, no, take him back there, please. There's more.
I guess I could see where you might want to try to lean towards someone who is at least open to this kind of subject matter.
Absolutely. We're very open to that. That's what we live for.
Good. That's I mean, I'm happy to hear it. But I also see the other side of it, like with your friend, where she's like, I'm good. I've seen enough. She's got Woofy Boy and all that other stuff, so maybe she's learned enough. In closing here, and I know that people are gonna go, wait a second, she mentioned invisible Sasquatch in her backyard and all this other stuff, but we're just simply running out of time. So, but you've also got more UFO encounters, you've got ghostly presences, even Chad's dad and brother, they have their thing, so heck, maybe we even need a part 3 with you guys if you'd be open for it. But I just want to put that out there because I'll get emails and go, Shannon, why didn't you, ask about the Sasquatch and everything else? So maybe we need a part 3 here. But yeah, we just don't have the time on this second episode. But in closing here, and again, I think I know the answer, but in going through all of this, why do you guys think that you've had these experiences?
I don't know. Just like when I was, with my blue being, we're not doctors, we're not scientists, we're not engineers, we're not high educated. So I don't know why. Maybe because we are open, and who's to say that these, that more people aren't having experiences and just don't remember or just don't realize, or too afraid to come forward. So, I don't know. And, like I said, my experience was positive. So, I'm glad of that because I have heard, horror stories. Mm-hmm. But, I just believe that, the ones that I encountered were all about the peace, love, joy, and self-healing. Mm-hmm. So, I just pray that, I can have more encounters with this person or this being, and that maybe more people could have it, and we could all have a little more peace.
Alta, how about you?
Well, I always enjoyed, Chad would often be able to, as you hear, I use a lot of words, too many words. Chad oftentimes would always be able to so simplify that when we would be asked that question, and his, basic statement, that was quite beautiful what he just said now as well. But basically, I agree with what he's always said in the past, which was, and it doesn't satisfy very many people, but it was always just for the sake of, this has been happening to Chad and Alta so that Chad and Alta could have these experiences together. That's, again, it doesn't say much, and it kind of says it all, because, why was Chad's grandfather's name Alta, same last name as my mother? And the fact that we're not even from the same geographical part of the world. I mean, again, the mystery it begins from the very beginning with Chad and I, and it's always mystery.
And again, I do remember always saying, to Alta that, she goes through a lot of these experiences, again, with what we've gone through, talking to you about, and then also these experiences with her friend and other, and they could help her with her, what she does. And, she can't help people. It's hard to help somebody if you haven't been through that kind of situation. So, when she's trying to help someone, she's able to reflect back on to, what we've been through, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right. Well, I just, I want to say a big thank you for joining me again. The book is Abducted in the French Quarter. It is Chad and Alta Dillard. Again, their email address, unbound323@AOL.com, and find them on Facebook under Abducted. Thank you guys so very much. It was a blast to talk to you again. And it was a nice little interjection with the zonkies and what's the camel and what was that last one?
Camel and llama is a comma.
Comma.
Chad's going to send you all these pictures, so you get ready.
I need them. I got to put them in the show notes now because the zonkey I saw straight away, but the rest of them I'm like, wait a second, I didn't even know these were real things. People are doing some wacky things with just different animals, aren't they? I'm just the names alone though will just make your day. So
it's hysterical. Well, Shannon, you're just the best, absolutely the best, and we will just continue to scream your praises and watch you grow. And can't say it enough how much we've enjoyed you. We'd love to come back anytime you care to have us. And please remember, and to anybody that's listening, please come and visit. If you get an opportunity, please come and visit and let us show you where this happened. And there's lots to see here. And so, again, thanks for everything.
Oh, absolutely. A huge thanks to both of you as well. And, yeah, you're welcome back anytime. And that's to my listeners because I'm going to hear it about that. And like, let her tell the invisible Sasquatch story. But we'll do that on the third episode. How about that?
Fun.
Okay.
And have a great night.
Hey, you guys too. Thank you